listening to the Good Stuff Podcast with your host, C.K. Helms.
All right, welcome to another episode. I think this is episode 6 of the Good Stuff Podcast. I am, of course, your host, C.K. Helms, and this episode is brought to you by Blind Bandit Productions. Every episode of the Good Stuff Podcast is brought to you by Blind Bandit Productions, so thanks, Zach, for producing the show for us. Anyway, we got a very special episode for you today. I talked about it last week, and at the end of every month, I'm going to try to do a special episode where it's dedicated to something specific in entertainment, and this one happens to be about the show Young Justice. If you haven't heard of Young Justice, it's my favorite animated series of all time, and it went for a couple seasons. It started back in November 2010, and then in 2013, that's when the second season ended there, and it was basically canceled, and then in 2013 that was, and 2016 they announced that a third season would be coming back, which just started at the beginning of this month on DC Universe. The third season, titled Young Justice Outsider, started, and this last Friday they finished up the first half of that, and then it's coming back, I think, in June. After the Doom Patrol series shows on DC Universe, and I think Swamp Thing will show in between that as well. But June, the second half of Season 3 will start. But yeah, this will be the first special that I do. It's dedicated to something specific, and then in the future I hope to do more. I know that I want to do a Red versus Blue one, and I think Jeremiah Elliott's going to come back and do that with me, and if you want to be on the Good Stuff Podcast, all you have to do is email me, goodstuffpodcast@yahoo.com, or you can hit me up on our Facebook page, which we're Good Stuff Podcast on there, and just let me know if you want to be on an episode, because like I've said before, you don't have to do something entertainment-wise to be on this, or indie talent-wise to be on this podcast. You can pretty much do nothing and just talk about entertainment with me, so... but yeah, if you want to be on a future episode and talk about something specific, whether it's Arrowverse, MCU, Red versus Blue, anything, I could have multiple guests at a time. It doesn't have to be just one person. And but you can come on future episodes. All you got to do is let me know. But speaking of episodes, you can listen to us on our Podbean. We are on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Pretty much anywhere that you can find podcasts, you can find the Good Stuff Podcast, and follow us, like us, heart us, do all that junk, whatever. We're going to get right into this episode, and I say we because I'm not alone today. Today I am joined by my good friend Bradley Julian. What's up, Brad?
You are never alone, Nick. It's good to be here on Entertaining Arkansas. I'm here in 2014, and oh wait,
man, we're in 2019. And it's Good Stuff Podcast.
Oh, 5 years later, yes.
Yes.
So, thanks for having me on, Nick. I did actually manage to watch 22 episodes of Young Justice just last night.
Yeah. Because you were refreshing. You've seen the show before, though.
Oh, I was a huge fan when it first came out. Of course, I'm old school. I was a Super Friends kid back in the day. I'd get the big bowl of cereal out Saturday morning. This show brought all that back for me, nostalgia-wise. It brought back a lot of old characters, made them new. We can talk about that here a little bit, though, but thanks for having me on. What do you want to talk about first?
Man, well first, I mean, you're my friend, and you also, just so people know a little bit about you, you're also an actor, and
yes.
You act on occasion, yeah?
On special occasions, yes.
Yeah, and I guess really where we know each other from where we started from is because you're Harvey Bullock on Gotham Knights.
I can neither confirm nor deny the rumors that I am Harvey Bullock. However, since it says so on my badge, I guess I have to admit to it.
Yeah, policemen, if you get questioned about it, you have to say that you're a police officer, right? Isn't that a thing? I don't know. Maybe that's
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I never know. I don't know if that's an actual
line. Neither confirm nor deny that I am currently employed by the Gotham City Police Department.
Yeah.
It all depends on how much money changes hands.
Right. And Harvey Bullock would all know about that. But yeah.
Allegedly.
Right? Allegedly. It's all allegedly. But yeah, but I'm gonna have you on a future episode, and we'll talk more about that. I just wanted to, talk a little bit about that, and of course, I had Ryan on. I think it was last week's episode, wasn't it? Yeah. Last week's episode was with Ryan, and which is actually I know him because of you. But we all did the Entertain Me Arkansas podcast. You were our announcer.
That was fantastic. Yes, I enjoyed doing it too.
Yeah, because you got a great.
Yeah, Ryan and I go way back. So.
Right, you got a great voice, and we had you as our announcer on Entertain Me Arkansas, and I don't know, did we ever have you as a guest, or I can't remember.
Yes, I was a guest. I was a guest interviewer when you had Phil Houston for the Revolutionaries on.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. That's cool. I didn't know if we actually interviewed you like an own episode, but that's okay because I'm gonna rectify that have you on Good Stuff Podcast. So it's all good. Won't worry about what happened back then. We'll worry about what's happening in the future. But anyway, let's get
5 years in the future.
5 years in the future, much like the jump between season 1 and season 2 of the Young Justice show, which we're talking about today. But yeah, a little bit about Young Justice. Basically, I guess we should just start from the beginning and go from there. What do you think?
So the scene is set. We have Kid Flash. We've got Aqualad, and we've got Robin.
And Speedy.
And Speedy, yes. Who's not Kid Flash. They keep having to explain that for some reason. You all know that Speedy is Green Arrow's sidekick. They're all excited. They're on missions with their mentors, and it's the big day. We don't know first what the big day is, but they're all talking about today's the day. And it turns out they're getting to go into the Hall of Justice.
Yeah, because they thought they were getting to join the Justice League.
Right.
But turns out that they weren't.
It was a tour.
Yeah, it was a tour. They're just getting to go to the Justice League, and which isn't even the real headquarters for the Justice League. It's
it's a tourist trap.
It's the front.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, they get there, and then basically they find out they're not joining the Justice League, and that they're just getting to go to the headquarters. And then Speedy's obviously the more angsty one out of the.
Of course, Roy Harper is very angsty.
Out of the four of them, and it's yeah, of course this was going to happen, blah blah blah, and this isn't even the real headquarters. It's
You basically get a library card out of the deal. That's
yeah.
You can access our data bank of history and things like that. So so needless to say, Speedy is ticked off.
Yeah, and he I believe he takes off after that, right? It's no.
Yeah, he heads out on his Speedy cycle or whatever it is.
Yeah, he threw his hat down, I think, maybe, and was like, no, I'm done, and was like, I'm not doing this sidekick anymore.
Right.
Quits, basically. And
I'm
so,
a rebel.
yeah. And of course, like happens in the world, danger happens, and so the Justice League has to go off, and they leave the kids there.
Right.
And
they're sent off on a secondary mission that basically they call the Justice League. Some guy calls and says, "Hey, there was a break-in at Cadmus Laboratories, or there's a fire." That's right. And the Justice League is all about, "Oh, okay, let's go put out that fire," but then they're called away on a bigger mission.
Yeah, and so the kids, instead of letting the Justice League know that it's more involved, they go take care of it themselves.
Oh, let's go. Let's take care of this fire. Yeah. So Robin and Kid Flash and Aqualad head out to put out fires.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
But whenever they get there, allegedly this whole episode is allegedly happening. But yeah, when they get there, they find out that there's more to the story, and a lot of stuff goes down there, and they got the Genomorphs are there, and Guardians there, and but basically they happen to find a clone who ends up
not just any clone,
Superman's clone.
Superman's clone.
But yeah, who they get out of this machine, and basically he starts attacking them.
He's been in a pod, and he's been programmed to do such things.
Yeah, because he was a clone that was made by Cadmus, which is funded by Lex Luthor, as we find out.
Well, yes, and as we find out later, not only made by Lex Luthor, but from Lex Luthor.
Right, which
in
is
some
actually
sort of awkward situation. Lex Luthor combines his DNA with Superman's DNA and makes a clone.
Yeah, so like Superman and Lex Luthor are kind of like gay adopted dads, but
It's some Freudian stuff going on there. Yeah.
Very strange. But yeah, so they end up getting captured, but then Superboy like kind of like ditches the xenomorph thing and like comes to his own senses and then helps them pretty much escape. And they take the Cadmus labs down. I can't really remember. Wasn't there like some explosion or whatever? Then the whole Justice League shows up and the four of them together.
They've rectified the situation, but it was also Guardian and Double X that helped them escape.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Was that the head
Double
of the
X
xenomorphs?
Yeah, he's a rather underused character in the series, I think. But
Wow. I just really know him from
horns
that episode, the first one.
Right.
I think he was in there more, but I can't really remember. I know Guardian was in there more.
Guardian is used throughout the series.
Yes.
At least the first 2 seasons, yeah.
Yeah, and then in that one episode in the 3rd season.
Right. Oh, well. I haven't seen that one yet. But...
Oh, well.
Oh, wait. Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the 3rd season later.
Right. We'll get to it. But, yeah, so then at the end of the episode, they tell the Justice League that the 4 of them, Aqualad, Kid Flash, Robin, and Superboy, want to be recognized as a team. And so they get set up by the Justice League in the Mount Justice, which is the old headquarters.
They said, go ahead, kids, go play in a cave. Yes.
Yeah, so they give them a team. They give them the team, which is basically called the Team. Yeah, which there's a Young Justice comic that just started, which has none of the characters in it. But they call them Young Justice, but the show's called Young Justice, but they
totally
never...
unrelated to the comic. I read about that.
Right, yeah, right. It's not the same thing. But they never get called Young Justice. It's just the Team.
Or even Teen Titans. But,
yeah, not even Teen Titans.
Characters.
It's the Team. Even to this day, in the 3rd season, they're still the Team. So yeah. So basically, the entire first season, in a nutshell, is just this team becoming together,
right,
and establishing itself as a force.
They pick up some additional sidekicks along the way.
And the first one is Miss Martian, right?
Ms. Martian, yes. Megan McGon, or McGon Mars.
McGon Mars.
McGon Mars.
Yeah, hello, Megan.
Hello, Megan.
She is the niece of Martian Manhunter. Allegedly. Why is the next 2 people we're going to talk about is allegedly?
Yes.
But yeah, so she joins the team, and so that's cool to have a Martian on your team. And then right after that, they pick up Artemis, who is the niece of Green Arrow.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. So I gave you space there because I was like, this entire podcast, like if I just said it's allegedly. But yeah.
Young Justice,
Allegedly. So throughout the season there, you got the team trying to make it together as a team. They're trying to... they don't have really like a clear leader. Who ends up becoming the leader is Aqualad. Ends up becoming the leader because...
Which it surprised me at first because when you're looking at a team of young heroes with Robin in the mix, you automatically expect, Robin's going to lead that team.
Well, yeah, and I believe that I believe that there was talk about that, like, and even Aqualad said that Robin should be leading the team, but that Robin's like, I'm not ready for that, and so Aqualad says, okay, I will lead the team, but it's just for a bit until you can come on and be the leader, because you should definitely be the leader. Even Aqualad understands that Robin should be leading the team. So,
right. Which, in this Aqualad is a different version from the one of my youth.
Right.
They bring Garth into it later.
But he's Tempest.
Right. But Garth was originally Aqualad.
Yeah, and I believe that...
Back in the day.
And I want to say that Kylo Ren was made for this show specifically.
Yeah. But they still work Garth into it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of old homages to the old Super Friends shows, Super Powers shows in this series, and I can point out some more as we go along.
Yeah, there is so much like in this. Of course, they're mentored by Red Tornado. There's so many old school characters, so many Easter eggs throughout these seasons. It's a love letter to the fans of DC Comics, and like, people that haven't seen Young Justice and are fans of comics and DC in general, you're really doing yourself a disservice by not watching it just because it's an animated show or whatever. And
by the way, if you haven't watched it yet, spoiler alert. We're talking about the whole first 2 seasons here, so...
Oh yeah, definitely spoilers, though. I guess we should have said that at the very beginning. Of course, I said that we were talking about Young Justice in a whole episode if you didn't think we were going to give you spoilers.
Did you work in the words injustice into that?
Did I?
That was clever.
Yeah,
You're doing yourself an injustice?
Yeah, I did. I didn't even notice that. You're doing yourself an injustice by not watching the show.
Well, Nick, I'm positively whelmed by your humor.
Inside joke there. Inside joke there from Wally. But yeah.
Souvenir!
Nice. Very nice. There's going to be a lot of whelms. If you're not whelmed by the end of this show, I've done you a injustice. Anyways. But another main thing, I guess, that really we should talk about is Red Arrow in the show.
Did you say Reddit?
Reddit. We should talk about Reddit. Red Arrow, or
Justice thread on Reddit.
The former Speedy, who ends up in the second episode, starts calling himself Red Arrow because he wanted to distance himself from Green Arrow that much. He named himself Red Arrow.
He chose a whole different color.
Yeah. He chose a different color and just changed one thing. But yeah, and so he becomes Red Arrow, and he's pretty much on his own and doing his side thing while basically also watching out for the team. But he's not on the team. He doesn't want to join the team, but he's always around most of the time. We have to mention him because there's just so much that goes on with him, and he crosses paths with the team a lot.
And his secret connection with Superboy.
And everybody has secret connections on this show, and everybody's got a secret. You notice that? Just like the entire first season is just secrets.
Oh yeah, it's all about secrets. And will this secret come to haunt them, or will they manage to keep their secrets? And I think there's also an underlying motif that secrets are bad and you should not keep them because people need to know. And if you tell the truth, then all will work out and everything will be okay. Or people will die. One of the two.
One or two. But yeah. So the main secret that's going on and it's the main, I guess, storyline within the team is that there is a mole in the team. That Batman.
Morocco Mole. Wait, no, not Morocco Mole. But yeah, there is. Yeah.
There is
confidential informant of some sort.
And he's passing. Apparently, he or she is passing along information, and from their team. Allegedly.
Yes.
Per Batman, I believe Batman's the one that told them about that, right?
Right.
Because there's these people called the Light, and the Light is basically these like 7, I believe.
It's
villains.
Basically the Legion of Doom.
Yes.
Again, throwback to my old school Super Friends fans, but yeah, it's a team of elite supervillains, some of which we don't know about yet.
Yeah, and at the beginning you don't know any of them, I believe.
Right.
And you learn more as you go along in the thing. And so they're the masterminds behind the whole series, basically. The light is. And they're always one step ahead. They're planning something to basically... They feel like there should be... The Justice League, they're trying to stop all the crime and stop all the bad stuff from happening. But the light believe that crime and all this stuff has to happen in order for humanity to evolve. And so...
And we'd also... Wait, does Godfrey come along in Season 1 or Season 2?
I believe that Godfrey is Season 2.
Okay. All right, well, so we'll get to him in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, so anyway, they're trying to find out the mole. The light's doing stuff. Every episode is basically stuff that they get closer to trying to find out who the light is and doing different things. The League of Shadows is involved. There's an Injustice League at one time.
And the Injustice League actually meet in a building that resembles the old Legion of Doom.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Building.
But I guess the next thing that happens that we should really speak about after we find out about the first secret is Artemis's secret. But yeah, so Artemis's secret, that's what I'm here for, to remind you. Artemis's secret is that, like I said, allegedly, that she's not actually Green Arrow's niece. And
oh, yes, okay, I remember now.
In fact, not only is she not Green Arrow's niece, but her family, her sister, and her dad are both supervillains.
Yes.
You
want me to name them? I can name them.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Her father is the heretofore laughable supervillain known as Sportsmaster.
Right.
But he's given a complete overwork in this series, and he's actually a genuine badass. So. Oh,
for sure. He is a badass. Still a badass to this day.
Right. And then her sister is the assassin Cheshire.
Yep. And so you find that both out, and so she's kind of, and they both work for the light. They're not part of the light, but they work for the light.
They're contract workers for the light.
Yeah, contract.
They're still waiting on that check from the government shutdown.
Yeah, right. They're freelancing. Yeah. So, I think that the next thing that you really should speak about when talking about the first season is quick blurbs of that. Is we have the helmet of Fate, Dr. Fate's helmet, which gets put on by Wally at first, and then after Kent Nelson dies, and Dr. Fate wants to remain with Wally.
Bonded with,
yeah, but
then he gets a hold of Aqualad.
But they convince Dr. Fate not to bond with the person, with Wally and stuff, and
I've been a Dr. Fate fan for a long time, and I've never seen him be more of a jerk than in this season.
Oh yeah, he is definitely a jerk, because he was like, no, the world needs Dr. Fate, and so he was basically going to make sure that Wally never had a life anymore. And they're like, well, Wally doesn't even know magic. You should be with so-and-so magic. And so he agrees. He agrees with Kent Nelson's spirit to save himself, save Wally, but the next person that puts on the helmet would basically become Dr. Fate. And so what?
Okay, yes, I remember now.
Yeah. What happens later?
Another sidekick.
Yeah. We didn't get Zatanna, and so yes, Zatanna comes in, and she's like joining the team, and then in the mission that they go on, the first mission, they have to go against a bunch of a group of magic people, and she ends up putting on the helmet, and Dr. Fate's going to stay as Zatanna basically, and so Dr. Fate can be around. But then he makes a bargain with her father, Zatara, and Zatara becomes Dr. Fate and is bonded. Sacrifices himself for his daughter, and so throughout.
For those who don't know, Zatanna and Zatara are basically vaudeville magicians that get anything they want by speaking backwards.
Yes, basically. that is at first. When at first I never knew that's how their magic worked. But then, like, later on, I found that I was like, oh, they're just basically speaking backwards. And I was like, that's cool. But yeah, so, and that's how the Dr. Fate thing ends. And until
At least
this.
it wasn't Piglet.
Yeah. Oh, that'd been funny.
Magic May ALJ.
What? Yeah. So, let's see. But yeah, that's the basically conclusion of the whole Dr. Fate storyline. So Zatanna has to move into the Mount Justice because Zatara's now
Dr. Fate has kidnapped her father and she has nowhere to live.
Yeah. So that's basically how it is for the rest of their lives until in season 3. It's even the same. So, but yeah. Let's see the next storyline, which involves a secret as well. Is Supergirl and which you are, or not Supergirl, Superboy. I don't know why I said Supergirl, but Superboy, which we've already talked about how he's a clone and stuff like that of Lex Luthor and Superman. But him and Miss Martian have a thing, and there's a lot of yeah. They don't date for a while. I don't think they start dating to the end of the first season. And but there's a lot of flirting going on because they're both, at first, they're the only ones that live at Mount Justice because they don't really have a home. I mean,
one's a clone, one's a Martian.
Right. And so there's flirting throughout the whole entire season. But really, I just wanted to mention that just because in the future we're going to talk more about that. And so, but anyway, so they do date. They do up dating, but it's like halfway through the season because I forgot what happens in the second season. But anyway, going back to...
I watched the entire second season last night, so...
Yeah. Going back to the secret is that Miss Martian is not a green Martian.
Yes, well, this is a trigger warning for those out there that are offended by white Martians dressing up in green face.
Yeah. Miss Martian is there's a Martian out there that's going to be really offended.
Cultural appropriation problem here.
Yes. And she's a white Martian pretending to be a green Martian. And why she does that is because white Martians are generally, allegedly, evil. Pretty much all of them except for Magan, for the most part.
By human standards, pretty ugly.
Yeah, in fact...
Ripley and alien type creatures, yeah.
They're ugly looking things, they're, I guess, the less attractive looking of Martians. They're more beast. By Martian standards. They're beast. In some continuities, white Martians enslaved the green Martians and pretty much destroyed them. That's why Martian Manhunter is the last son of Mars.
That's probably why you thought of Supergirl, because that's the case in the Supergirl universe.
Right, yeah, this is true.
On CW, yeah.
Yeah, they've been... it was freezing up on me again, I think.
Okay.
But anyways, and... but yeah, so she ends up... the team ends up finding out that she is indeed a white Martian, not a green Martian, but I mean, I don't think it's really a big deal. Do you think?
Well, it could have been, and certainly Magan thought it would be, but again, it goes back to that motif where she finally reveals her secret, and everybody in the team is like, that's okay. We love you anyway.
Right, yeah.
And even Superboy's like, I knew all along. I was just letting you pretend.
Yeah.
Which brings up a very... It's an overlooked segment in the first season, but at one point, Superboy appears to be in combat training with Black Canary, and Batman is watching the training session from the watchtower, and he has a concern because it appears that after the training session, Superboy and Black Canary start making out. So he calls Black Canary into the watchtower, like, what gives with this? And it turns out it was Miss Martian morphing, body transforming, shape-shifting to look like Black Canary as a form of, role play with Superboy.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
It
So,
wasn't. It was barely
Legendary
touched
is
upon.
obviously ticked off.
Yeah. But yeah, so funny. About midpoint throughout the season, though, the one important thing to mention is that Red Tornado, pretty much kind of he has some bad programming, and in one of the episodes from these other Red Torpedo and Red Inferno, which
Red
are
Volcano.
and Red Volcano, in parentheses, relatives of his
Right.
that fixes that basically open up his true program, and he betrays the team and
Right.
stuff like that.
All created by the legendary T.O. Morrow.
Yeah, T.O. Morrow. You're right. And so eventually, I mean, they get him back under good programming. But so
The
therefore,
problem with hiring androids and robots, change their programming, all of a sudden they're not your friend anymore. I don't know. I wouldn't give them access to the Watchtower myself, but that's
right. And so
can't be prejudiced towards the.
it can't be prejudiced against the robots. Robots are people too?
Yeah.
Question mark. So then, so Aqualad's like, well, obviously, we've found the mole. The mole is Red Tornado, allegedly. So,
Allegedly.
That's why.
He's also allegedly making himself a little friend up in his apartment at Mount Justice, but.
Right. Allegedly. So let's see. Then we find out. Then after the Red Tornado thing, then the kids are pretty much babysit by Captain Marvel.
Which is hilarious.
Or, yeah, but which is Shazam now. You can't say Captain Marvel. Which is hilarious because
he can't say Shazam without turning into those other forms.
Right. Billy Batson, who's a kid,
Right.
which I've talked about before on the show with the movie coming out. We find out the Light, who the Light is, which is ran by Vandal Savage,
Vandal Savage, Immortal scumbag,
Immortal, Lex Luthor, Ra's al Ghul, Ocean Master, Brain, Clarion the Witch Boy, and Queen Bee. Which that's the Light. Not much.
Clarion to me sounds almost exactly like the evil puppet from an old pinball machine called Funhouse. But it could be the same guy. You don't know, but it's like he sounds like an evil ventriloquist doll, basically.
Right. And that was he's the leader of that magic team that we talked about earlier. That how we get Dr. Fate and stuff like that. Like we're going in and out of episodes here. I'm just trying to hit some high points from the first season, But yeah, so
everything is connected. It's okay.
Yeah. Because then we have the Kid Flash and Artemis have kind of they're flirting, but they hate each other type thing throughout the season. Even though he kind of has a crush on Miss Martian, but he finds out she's dating Superboy.
Flash has a crush on just about every female that walks in the door.
He does. It's just like anyone. I think even Black Canary too.
Yes.
But yeah. Let's see.
And Zatanna.
He just likes women. I mean, he's like a player basically. But yeah, so that's a lot of the stuff that just happens throughout the first season. Up until the last two episodes, which are the season finale.
Usual Suspects and Old Acquaintance.
Right. And what you find out here, what happens here, is that the mole was not Red Tornado. The mole is Red Arrow.
Right.
And
he didn't even know he was the mole.
He didn't know he was the mole because he's
a clone too.
He's a clone of the real. He's not Roy Harper.
No, he is, but he's not.
He's a clone of Roy Harper. The real Roy Harper is missing, and several years ago he went missing, and was replaced with this clone. which Guardian is actually a clone of Roy Harper too.
Yes.
Jim Harper, which I don't know if that's in. I don't know if that's comic continuity. Do you know?
I can't remember either. It's been a while, but it works for the show.
Yeah, but yeah. So he is. He's been brainwashed, and he apparently has some code words, like Winter Soldier code words,
Right.
that make his programming, and where they give
And
him.
so did
two stuff.
Superboy. Whenever Lex Luthor met with Superboy,
True.
he'd say Red Sun, and then he had control of him. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I think that at one time, there was one episode where they thought it was going to be like Artemis. You thought Miss Martian and Superboy were all going to betray the team and end up being the mole,
Right.
and they all end up at the end of that episode pledging
And the one who
allegiance.
kept pushing those three was Red Arrow.
Right. And so you thought one of those are the three suspects to be the mole, and but it was not. It was Red Arrow. He had programming, and he ends up using with the light, using what they used brainwashing technology with Starro, which is
Right.
was in the first Justice League.
Another.
The first Justice
classic
League villain was
They're basically
Starro.
face suckers, but
He has telekinetic, telepathic powers, right? Telepathic.
Yeah, they can control people's minds through the Starro.
Yeah, and so they make tech, and he slips the tech on all the Justice League, and allows Vandal Savage to come into the Watchtower, and then his programming ends, and then he
Right.
realizes that he was the mole, and so that makes it where then he escapes, and all the Justice League is going after him, and he has to go find the team, and that's the big season finale of the Young Justice team versus the Justice League, and they keep on taking the Starro tech off of all the Justice League to
Right.
basically where it's down. And during that time, we kind of got to mention that those 6 members of the Justice League were
Yes,
gone.
the missing 16 hours.
The missing 16 hours, which comes back in season 2.
Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman,
Hawk Woman,
Hawk Girl,
Green Lantern,
Green Lantern,
and
it's 5, right?
I can't remember who else. But anyway, I think it was like the 6, basically 6 members. Was it Flash? Or was it Martian Manhunter?
I think it was Martian Manhunter.
It was Martian Manhunter because
Yeah.
in season 2, Magan has to pretend to be Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter, which is 6 of the 7 from the original Justice League animated series.
Yes. And also the original Justice League in comics.
Right,
So,
excluding Flash.
right. Martian Manhunter was actually an original member.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
And so, but that's for later on.
Right.
But yeah, so basically comes down, and they take on the Justice League. It comes down to where it's only Superman and Batman. Batman goes against Robin. Superman goes against Superboy. And of course, the old sidekicks end up winning, and the kids take them out, and so they end up foiling the Light's plans, and so the Light leaves, and that's basically the end of the season. We find out that this was just phase 1 of the Light's plans, and then you also need to find out where the 16 hours where these 6 members were unaccounted for, and these are mysteries that lead into season 2.
5 years later.
5 years later. See, what I like about, so we're in season 2. What I like about season 2 is at the first of it, when it starts off, you don't know that it's 5 years later, because you're seeing all these characters that are.
Oh yeah, the opening scene. They don't
The opening
tell you.
scene. The opening scene, they don't tell you. It just starts off, they're on a mission, and you just see these people from. You see like Superboy, you see Martian, Miss Martian, and they look. I mean, she has a hood on, so you can't really tell that her hair's shorter. Superboy looks like Superboy, so.
Right.
They're talking to Dick on the communicator, which you don't know that he's Nightwing because you just hear his audio. And so at first, until you see that the Robin is Tim Drake, and then you see the other new characters, you see Beast Boy and stuff like that. You don't know that it's set 5 years later, but then it says 5 years later.
When I found out it was Tim Drake, I thought, well, that's weird. They entirely skipped a Robin.
My favorite.
Yeah,
Jason Todd, which I guess we could go on to later. But season 2, to be honest with you, you're probably going to know more about season 2 than me.
right.
Because all I know is that the main storyline from that is, the light's still doing a thing, and then they bring the Reach, which are aliens,
Right.
into
The
the...
funny thing about the Reach, before we get into the storyline for season 2, the Reach, at least aliens appearing very similar to the Reach, actually appeared in the original 1970s Super Friends series. And in that storyline, they were sent to Earth to move the Earth closer to the sun, so it would be warm enough for them to live there, because their home planet was drifting out of orbit and getting too cold. And so that was their plan on the old show, on the Super Friends show.
Yeah.
And it turned out that once the Super Friends found out about it, they're like, oh, well, no, we'll help you out. We'll just find you another planet suitable, for your living conditions, and you can live there. Like, oh, thank you. But they turned them into much more nefarious creatures in season 2, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
To start off with.
Yeah, because they
This is
start
where
off
G.
peaceful.
Gordon Godfrey comes in. He's the J. Jonah Jameson of the DC universe, basically.
Right.
He hates superheroes. He hates aliens. He rails against them on his TV show. He wants them all to be, labeled, documented, shipped off to an island, something like that. He's really anti-alien, anti-superhero type guy. But when the Reach show up,
But before the Reach show up, is we find out the 16 hours is found out, and whenever a Correlation shows up, and you find out that the Justice League pretty much, yeah,
However you say it.
Yeah, Correlation shows up, and that's where the Justice League members were. So they get, basically, those 6 have to go do a trial on Correlation.
That's the end of season 2. They go to trial.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning of season 2, we see I'd have to say my absolute favorite DC character of all time, Lobo.
Yeah.
Lobo rolls in on his space motorcycle, breaks into the UN, and rips apart an ambassador from some country. But he basically rips apart this ambassador, and turns out there's a Proletarian, what are they called? The Krollos. There's a Krollo inside piloting the ambassador.
Right.
It's an android.
All right.
And that's when the team finds out about the missing 16 hours and what
they were on the planet Rimbor. I'm looking here.
Yes,
and
Rimbor,
so
right.
in the 3rd episode, at the end of the 3rd episode, those 6 members, Superman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Batman, Flash, and Green Lantern, they leave the planet Earth to go to Rimbor to resolve the dispute.
To stand trial, right.
To stand trial. Because that is actually part of the Light's plan to get rid of the most powerful members of the Justice League off the planet, so therefore they can move in their next thing.
And because Green Lantern was one of the 6, that also holds off the Guardians of the Universe. Not the galaxy, but the universe.
Of the universe.
The Guardians of Oa, basically, who founded the Green Lantern Corps. Because there's a Green Lantern involved, they can't get involved. So it has to be the High Council of Rimbor, or whatever it is, Intergalactic Tribunal on Rimbor.
Let's see, some of the new characters that get introduced there at the first few episodes. You got Blue Beetle. You got Beast Boy is in there.
Yes.
Isn't Wonder Girl in the show?
Wonder Girl comes in, yeah.
Tim Drake, Robin.
Zatanna is still there.
Lagoon Boy.
Lagoon Boy, yeah, which I wanted to call Abe Sapien, but that's another series altogether. He looks like that character.
He's
Dark
dating.
Horse.
He's dating. Oh, Batgirl's there.
Yes, Batgirl's there.
Bumblebee, Guardian, who is actually a different Guardian now. Jim Harper, who is the clone of Roy Harper, who was Guardian, is no longer Guardian.
Rocket is also there.
Rocket, true.
And they basically expanded the team quite a bit because they split off in Alpha, Beta, Gamma squadrons.
Yeah, so they basically make all these squadrons because they have so many heroes in their thing. We forgot Dick Grayson's Nightwing, and he's in charge.
Right.
And then let's see, Wally and Artemis aren't even being heroes anymore.
They quit. They
quit.
Just lived a good life. So
they lived together. They're dating and moved in with each other. But I think the main thing to mention is that Aqualad has defected to the light side, the dark side, light side.
The light side, yeah.
Yes.
He is
Black Manta's son.
Now serving his father, Black Manta.
Yeah, which is obviously he was a character created for the show, not Black Manta, but Calderon. So I thought it was really cool that he ended up being Black Manta's son.
Right.
But we come to find out it's actually a ruse from the team, and just
spoilers.
This entire episode is spoilers. At this point.
So, at this point, the Reach have come to Earth. They have come in peace. Even G. Gordon Godfrey says that they're okay, and they just want to share technology and knowledge with the people of Earth, and they do this by creating an energy drink with the help of Luthor Corp called Reach Peach, and of course the energy drink contains psychotropic meds or something like that. Basically, the ability to control all mankind to make them subservient to the Reach.
Right.
So
at the same time, going back to the Aqualad thing, Artemis joins the team for one mission, and then she is killed by Aqualad in the fight.
Right.
Allegedly. And that's when we find out about the ruse of Aqualad. He did it so that way that he could get more further into the light, because Black Manta is now part of the light. And
he takes on a new lieutenant.
Yes, Tigris, who happens to have it's Artemis using a charm made by Satana.
Right.
To fool everyone that looks at her sees a different person, a Tigris. And but she's Tigris.
Only she can see her true self in the mirror.
Right. But it's Artemis. So that's going on, and then the Reach is going on. When the Reach come, then they have the Black Beetles there, right?
The Beetles come along, and what happens, unfortunately, with Aqualad, Nightwing didn't share all the secrets, which was the deep mission within the light. So Ms. Martian is not aware that
the only people.
Aqualad is,
Yeah, she doesn't know. The only people that know is Aqualad, Wally, Artemis, and Nightwing are the only ones that know that Artemis isn't dead, and that Aqualad it's all ruse.
Undercover.
It's all allegedly.
So, when Ms. Martian confronts Aqualad, she loses her stuff and mind zaps him.
Yeah.
She goes, "Murderer!" and crushes his brain and puts him in a coma.
But then that's when she also finds out, though, right?
She didn't find out till later.
Oh, I thought she found out after she did that.
Well, I mean, yeah, a little later on, but yeah, but when she did it, she was happy about it. She was just like, I crushed him, and so, there. Then when they tell her, she's like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
Can't believe I did that. And she's afraid to use her powers after that.
Yeah, but he ends up becoming okay, which is good.
She fixes him,
yeah. But that's about all that I remember. So anything else you'll just have to help me remember.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Besides, at the beginning of season 2, we see Vandal Savage basically confronting the War World, which is controlled by
Mongol, right?
Mongol, yes, Mongol. I was going to say Mogul. That's not it. Mongol, and they reach a standoff, so to speak, and then the Reach gets involved, and so they're all basically battling each other for control of the Earth. The Reach, the War World, and Vandal Savage. This is where Young Justice, the team, comes in. They find out that the Reach are secretly creating their own team of young metahumans. And they capture Jaime Reyes.
Bluebeard.
They capture Ty, a friend of his, who becomes, I'm not sure he's even to this day become that in this series, but in the old Super Friends, he was Apache Chief. He was the Native American who could say a native chant and become a giant. But they make it different here in that he doesn't actually get large, but his aura becomes a giant, and he can fight with his aura. So, Stag Shock is created in this storyline,
right?
And which is Black Lightning is going to be his mentor, and then I can't remember the Japanese girl.
Is it Katana?
I think it is Katana, right? Yeah. She's with that team. It's the Runaways.
Yeah.
Which is a very popular series that I haven't got a chance to read or watch yet.
That's actually Marvel Runaways.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, they call them the Runaways in here, so anyway, never mind.
It's the DC version of Runaways.
It's a DC version of the Runaways. You even call that episode Runaways.
Yep.
And then we see, we get introduced to Impulse.
Yeah, Impulse.
Impulse
is Bart Allen.
The grandson, Bart Allen, of Barry Allen. And he is sent into the past by Neutron. Not Jimmy Neutron, but just Neutron. To help change the future. And Impulse knows it's a one-way trip. He knows he can't make it back. But he does enough to keep Neutron from destroying the Earth. And Neutron becomes one of the Runaways, actually. The younger Neutron.
Right.
And then they go back to the future and show the future Neutron. He's better now. They never really revisit that.
No. Like, they show that the Earth is still different.
Right.
But didn't destroy the Earth. But they never did show back that again. But and then I know another thing that happens. Red Arrow goes basically looking for the real Roy Harper in the season.
Who's armless, by the way.
And they finds him, and he's missing an arm, and he didn't. Once
he's
he gets
totally
him,
armless.
He's just missing something. I just don't know what it is. But yeah,
so
and he
course,
becomes Arsenal.
Big Papa Lex Luthor steps in and gives him an arm.
Who had him kidnapped in the first place, I believe.
This is here. Well, Red Arrow is going after Lex Luthor, and he fires a rocket-propelled grenade into Lex Luthor's office. But he has armor on his desk, so he's fine. But then he gets into the vault with his sidekick, or his bodyguard, Mercy.
Mm-hmm. Like he does.
And he says, I have to grab one thing. And you see he goes into this vault, and there's priceless works of art. There's a Fabergé egg. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But the one thing he grabs is a metal briefcase, which he later gives to Red Arrow, and it's the mechanical arm.
Yeah, and he gives that to
full of surprises.
He gives that to Roy. Is there any other high points throughout the season?
Lex Luthor also gives Superboy a gift.
Those are in season 1.
Those are in season 1?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I thought I could have swore he was using them in season 2.
No, he didn't use those shields. Those season 1.
Oh well. But basically those were the ones that gave him full Kryptonian powers.
Right.
So we find out that...
Well, basically, I know that there's the Black Beetle, and then Blue Beetle, and then Green Beetle, which end up...
Black Beetle is a... turns out all the Scarabs were creations of the light. Not the Light, the Reach.
The Reach.
Yeah,
And so then the Reach ends up turning. This is at the end of the season. The Reach turns against the Earth.
Basically, the Reach. Yeah, they decide no, we're invading, and Black Beetle is already under their control. He's with the Reach, and he's their enforcer. Green Beetle steps in to help save Blue Beetle from Black Beetle.
But that was all allegedly.
It was also allegedly, yeah. And he says, "Hey, I can help you with your Scarab. It's messed up, and I can reboot it for you." And Blue Beetle's like, "Okay, sure, that sounds great," because he's always arguing with his Scarab over morality and football and whatever. So Green Beetle fixes Blue Beetle, and now the Reach have 3 agents, including Blue Beetle, who is a mole with the team now.
Right.
So
there's like a huge battle, of course, between all of them. The Justice League, the Justice League ends up getting off through some evidence that Miss Martian and Superboy provide them.
Yeah, they basically they get a full confession. They turn Aqualad fakes his death again, and plays a message that basically reveals all the treachery that the Light was planning against the Reach, that the Reach was planning against the Light, and because at this point they're both trying to control not only Earth but War-World as well. That's hard to say. So they reveal all the treachery that's been going on behind the scenes, and so the Reach and the Light turn on each other.
Right.
Oh, yeah, Aqualad, when he died, allegedly, was killed by Deathstroke.
Right.
He was also in this series as a hired hand of the Light. And but it turns out it wasn't Deathstroke, it was Miss Martian. Calder's not dead, it was a ruse, but by this time, they've all basically, they're all fighting each other. The Light, the Reach, are at odds, and everything gets revealed to the UN. And finally, Superboy and Miss Martian take the recorded evidence from the Reach and the Light and take it to trial. The 6 that were on trial there had already been convicted and sentenced, but they managed to convince them to reopen the case. They appealed to their ego, saying, "You're known for dispensing great justice throughout the universe." And so basically they say, all right, based on this new evidence, they're completely exonerated and free to go.
Right.
And so there's a big party back at the Watchtower, and that pretty much ends season 2.
The only thing that we missed out on there is that to stop the Reach, all the speedsters have to run around and do that one thing, and then Wally ends up disappearing into the Speed Force, basically dying.
Right. Allegedly.
I don't know, because in season 3 he still hasn't came back.
Right, I know. So yeah, it could be a later thing, but yeah, he's not as fast as Impulse and the Flash, and so he ends up catching most of the energy that's being
off the
created
device.
by and he gets dissolved.
Yes, and so Artemis decides to go on being Tigress, but then the season ends with Vandal Savage boom tubing to Apocalypse and
shaking hands with
Darkseid to start the next phase, and then we had to wait all these years to get
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years to get that. And
I do want to say to watch the first 2 seasons and in the current season, you've got to get DC Universe. It's $80 a year, which sounds like a lot, but for the entertainment value you get from DC Universe, I'm not being paid by them to say this. I just, as my own person, the content is incredible. And not only is there Young Justice, there's a new original series called Titans, which is incredible. They've got old series, and like you said, they're coming up with Swamp Thing, and they'll be coming up with a lot of original series. So if you love DC as much as we do, get DC Universe.
Right, and for sure. But yeah, we're not going to get...
Maybe talk them into picking up a show about Batman being Misty.
Yeah, something Gotham Knights related. But yeah, man, we're not going to get into season 3 today. But yeah, we'll talk more about... I've talked about season 3 some, and I'll talk more about season 3. But season 3 picks up, I think, like 2 years after the season 2. And it's about human meta trafficking, which is... Yes. Yeah, it's good. I think season 3 by far is my favorite so far, and it's good.
It's looking really good. I need to catch up on this week's releases, but I was doing something else, watching all of season 2.
Right.
So,
but yeah, man.
Nick, I'm whelmed that this went well.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on and talking with me about season 1 and season 2. I hope we got everybody interested in watching season 1 and season 2, and hope you go back and even if you've seen it before, go back and revisit those episodes, and then watch season 3 on the DC universe. But yeah. All right, man.
And,
yeah.
We'll have another episode of the Good Stuff podcast, allegedly. Coming soon.
Yes, sir. All right, and we'll see you next time, next Thursday on the Good Stuff podcast. And Brad, I'll see you next time that I see you.
All right.
Allegedly.